Welcome to Still City Growth. I'm your host, Bill Ildenfritz. Each week, we'll explore the passions, expertise, and experiences of business owners and founders in the greater Pittsburgh area. Still City Growth is proudly sponsored by Murphy Business of Pittsburgh, committed to providing exceptional services to meet all your business needs. Let's dive in. Well, good morning. I am really happy and excited to talk to my next guest. She's a seasoned trainer who's passionate about helping businesses streamline operations and drive growth. She brings years of experience across business functions such as sales, logistics, customer success, supply chain, and more. She's actively involved in Pittsburgh business community, speaking at and attending many nearby events. She's a founder of Process Works. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Sarah, I did not say your last name. Why? Because as my Ildenfritz last name has been butchered and slammed for 55 years of my life, I want to make sure yours gets right because I would like to, my guests to obviously reach out if they need you. So, Sarah, please tell me your whole name so it's perfectly for all my clients.
Yes. So my last name is DiPerna, but I just got married last year. So until I got married, I was using my maiden name Halperin. So to clarify for everyone, the name I go by most commonly professionally is Sarah Halperin DiPerna.
Perfect. And you do it so well. Like I said, I have had Sliggin Fritz. I've had every possible name. And now I watch my daughter get her name butchered as she runs across the field. So I want to make sure it was perfect. I think I had it, but I want to make sure.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. So, Sarah, this is the first question we ask everybody at the start of the show. You all ready? Ready for it?
Yeah.
All right. So what is the number one most important strategy for growing your business?
So I know when we started Process Works, one of the things that we did that I think was the most beneficial for us and helped us with the direction in which we wanted to grow was we sat down day one and said, where do we see this company going in 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, and having real clear direction and exactly where we wanted to grow and make sure that we were all aligned around that. Because I think that's one of the things that often gets overlooked in small business is that you'll have companies that someone starts a company because they're really good at their profession and they want to start, their own enterprise, which is great. But when they do that, they don't necessarily set out clear, specific goals for for what they want to accomplish or to figure out how they want to do it. So I think one of the biggest difference makers for us was figuring that out immediately, saying, okay, not only what do we want to do, but how do we want to do it, and where do we see ourselves going in the long term?
That's excellent. I was in healthcare, and we used to promote our directors of nursing many times, right, into upper management, or even let me go back even more and just say a great nurse who's out on the floor doing a great job, love her job. You put her in director of nursing or a high nursing position, and they don't do real well. So there's a big difference between technical knowledge and the management knowledge. So I agree. Everybody has to be aligned. Everybody has to be, kind of put in the right place. Talk to me a little bit about, kind of the process. What would you say? What's first, second, third in your mind?
So I think one of the best things that we did was figure out we went to everyone in the organization, which at the time and actually still is 3 people, and we figured out what united us in terms of like core values, how we were all similar and what we all valued, and brought that into the table as values for the company. This is what we're going to be. This is what we want to remain true to as we grow, as we bring people on, etc. And so that was really helpful. But one of the other things I think that's really helpful is kind of continuing to throw out the mile marker, so to speak. So to look at it in terms of increments, in terms of, okay, what does success look like for this company in 1 year? What does it look like for this company in 5 years? And depending on which school of thought you subscribe to, I know in EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, they refer to it as the 10-year picture. And I'm trying to remember who came up with the concept of the BHAG, but I know it's mentioned in Jim Collins' Good to Great. The big, hairy, audacious goal. The idea that you have this one big thing that you're aiming towards, and it's scary and it's intimidating, but I think it's important to be able to have that long, far-reaching goal that just so that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. That if we're ever lost, we remember this is what we're pointing to. So I think starting with those core values, setting smaller goals in terms of what we're trying to accomplish in 1 year, a couple years, 5 years, etc. But then having that one big overarching goal that you're also always working towards, I think all of those are really important.
No, I totally agree. Now, with this said, I know you work with, clients. So when you tell them about that goal down the road, I think at least some of my clients, they get a little overwhelmed. So I agree with your point, but then how do you kind of break it down in smaller, little pieces to help them be able to manage that?
So, in the process world, the way that this applies is that generally speaking, when we're first talking to people who are interested in process works, we're asking them what makes them interested in working on process improvement in the first place. And generally, there's always a relatively succinct answer of, we are in pain from this one particular process, or we've just grown so much so quickly that the way that we're doing things now is the same as we were doing things 5 years ago, and it may have worked for us 5 years ago, but it's not working now. And so generally, those kinds of issues tend to open themselves pretty readily. And the way that this relates to the like long term goals is that we come in and we say and we ask, okay, if we go in and help to improve your processes, is this going to solve that problem? And that either becomes a long term goal in and of itself because process work doesn't happen overnight, or it sets the stage to be able to identify what that long term goal is going to be, because you're absolutely right. It can be intimidating for businesses to say, where I want to be 10 years from now. I have no idea. I don't know what I want to do tomorrow. So to be able to shift into that long term thinking can be challenging. But I found that once businesses start thinking, working on the business, not always in the business kind of thing. Once they make that shift, it becomes a little bit less intimidating, and these goals kind of reveal themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. So take just so we can kind of help our clients. So let's take them back to when you three were sitting in that room. Your first time you're sitting in that room, you're like, okay, we have a company. Talk us a little bit about that. What did what's some of the questions you like quote asked yourselves? What are some of the things you were looking to do?
So one of the things that we were really trying to figure out was what was our purpose in starting this. The Process Works is at least partially a family company. Myself and the other owner are father and daughter. So we had been working on this idea for a while before we decided to go ahead and incorporate. And so there were some questions that we had already sort of figured out over the course of, building up this company and what we wanted it to look like. The questions that we asked ourselves were things like why specifically do we feel compelled to do this? What problem are we solving? And how are we adding value in our clients' lives? And how are we making their businesses run better? And what are we doing that's different from other methodologies out there? And I think that differentiation question is also critically important. And I'm not going to lie to you, it was kind of difficult to figure out when we were first starting out because we had a general idea of what we wanted to do, but we weren't totally sure what our differentiator was going to be at that point, because our methodology was still kind of being fleshed out. And but to have an idea of, we may not know exactly the nuts and bolts yet, but we know the effects that we want to have. That really helped guide us.
Yeah, I know you said it's difficult, but talk about that different. I get that question all the time. Hey, Bill, you're one broker of 50. What makes you different? And sometimes it even paralyzes me after 20 years. So talk about that. Like, how do you differ? In general, how do you differ? How do you think about that? How did you kind of decide eventually what makes you different than other companies?
So our differentiator is actually kind of multifaceted. So it started in the idea that we are a process improvement uh, method that is built for small and mid-sized businesses specifically. In the realm of process improvement, you have big names, big consulting firms with most of which people are probably already familiar with, and you also have these big methodologies that you go through weeks or sometimes months of training to become a certain certification saying that you understand how to work in certain process improvement programs, which is fantastic. And we found that those companies and those methodologies work really well for larger companies, but there just wasn't much out there for the small and mid-sized market specifically. And so that's the first thing, is that we wanted to focus specifically on small and mid-sized companies. And the way that we do that, and this is kind of the second angle of that, is we wanted to make a methodology that was as concise and succinct as possible, that could be done in a relatively short amount of time. It could be taught in a relatively short amount of time so that we are not eating up all the time, all the resources of these small and mid sized companies that don't necessarily have a ton to spare. So, in forming out our methodology, the way that we do it is we just host a series of workshops with our clients, either a full day, which we always do to start, or a half day. And as many of those workshops as they want to do is up to them. So we can go through and we can teach them the tools of our methodology in a single day, and they will walk out of that session with one full documented process in addition to a bunch of other stuff, just from going through that workshop with us. The idea is that it's kind of something that you can build yourself. We are there with you for as much or as little as you want us for. We will give you the tools, and what you want to do with it is up to you. And that's kind of the third level of our differentiation, is that it really can be customized to the company. So after that first day, our first workshop is relatively standard, but after that, depending on what they want to work on, we will build that curriculum around them. For instance, we had a company that we've been working with for a few months now that came to us and asked if we could do a specific day with them focused just on creating checklists. Which, to be completely honest, we had never done before. We told them that, but they said, "You know what? But that's fine. We know your expertise. We know you can do this. Can you build this out for us?" And we did, because that's what we do, is we take our clients' needs and we make sure that we tailor solutions that fit them specifically.
Yeah, perfect. So you mentioned obviously process improvement several times. I think I know what it is, but and I'm sure some of the audience know what it is. But what is it? What it is to you? Talk to me about process improvement, please.
So the simplest way that I can put it is getting everyone in the company on the same page about what things are supposed to be done and how they're supposed to be done. So the way that this typically works is, and that this doesn't matter what methodology you use, usually comes down to this, is that you document how you want each of those processes to function, whether that's through using flowcharts, whether that's through using step-by-step guides, work instructions, whatever that looks like, some kind of documentation, and then some kind of implementation as far as training everyone in the organization or everyone involved in that process specifically how it's going to function from here on out. So that's kind of the loosest definition that I can give. And all of these different methodologies and companies, we all come up with our own way that we feel is most effective to do that.
Yeah, and why I want to talk to you too was, process improvement on smaller companies. I think that's important. As a broker, I see smaller companies, medium-sized companies, so to speak, get left out sometimes. You're right. These real big companies have these big consultants that come in, but I think you're filling a real niche by going in after these small companies and sitting down with them. So that's incredible for sure. Um, but let's go back and just say in general, what if I know I want to improve my process, but I'm there. I want to grow my business and I'm just lost. Kind of tell us a little bit about how do you do that? How do you help them do that?
So the first thing that we recommend companies do, whether they're working with us or not, is to figure out exactly what their core processes are to their organization, because every company has sort of different layers of processes that go from big overarching processes like your sales process, for instance, to lower down, more detailed, uh, more I hate to say more tedious, but like more towards the bottom of the pyramid, the more specific processes. For instance, entering an opportunity into your CRM could be considered a process. But what we do and what we recommend our clients do, and even people who aren't working with us who are trying to go down this journey, is to identify what your core, those big overarching processes are, and start there. Because what we see a lot of companies do is they say, okay, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna document my processes, or I'm gonna have delegate to this person to document their process, without really giving much framework to what exactly that means. And so you end up with a bunch of, well, we see one of two things happen, that you either have hundreds of different SOPs, work instructions, whatever you want to call them, that end up, what I refer to as sitting on a shared drive somewhere under seven different layers of folders that haven't been updated in 15 years that no one actually uses. Or you just have nothing documented at all. There are very few companies that have anything in between. So the reason that that we suggest identifying what those core processes are is because that's where you want to start. So when we refer to core processes, that's what we mean, those big, high overarching processes, things like sales, like finance, HR. If you're in manufacturing, which I spent some time in manufacturing myself, you'll have a production process, a quality assurance process, but you'll also have other processes that are more specific to you as a company. You may have a like a corporate governance or corporate strategy process that relates to new lines of research, or maybe you have an R&D process if you're trying to figure out new product lines. Like those kinds of things will all be different for each particular company, but identifying what those are, which can be tricky, is really, really helpful. And the way that we suggest doing that is by getting your entire leadership team together and having everyone brainstorm what they think those core processes are, and then kind of using those lists to sort of reconcile and bounce ideas off of each other. And, well, this isn't really a core process, but these two that this person and this person came up with are actually kind of the same thing. And kind of use that meeting of the minds as a way to figure out what that list is.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of spend a little bit of time on that because I found it when I went to nursing home when I went into a nursing home as a nursing home administrator. I noticed that you had all these different processes in place, and then one department may not affect another department, but then there is some overlap. And so then, of course, as an administrator, if you just take one person's side and kind of like roll out the other and make that be the process, then you kind of can screw up somebody else's whole process. So I love how you say about bringing the team together. So talk to me a little bit about that more, because what happens when there are two processes that, it's important to this person, but it's also important to this person? How do you shake that out? How do you make that work?
So there's a couple different things that I want to address here, because you're touching on a couple different areas. And the first is that there are very often core processes that actually involve people in different departments and different areas of the company that may actually be the same process, and people don't always understand that. The example that I always use here is going back to my manufacturing world. When listing out the core processes, it's very often for manufacturers or anyone who's dealing in products to have a shipping and receiving process. But when they really dig into it, shipping and receiving are actually two different things. And for some companies, receiving is actually part of the inventory process. Sometimes it stands alone. Again, it depends on the company. And shipping is what usually directly precedes the quality assurance and production process. And sometimes that quality assurance process even happens while shipping is continuing to go on. So the reason that I bring that up is because that's the first instance of what we refer to as people teaching people to think operationally rather than organizationally. And the idea is that when you have people who are working in the same process across different departments, they need to be on the same page of one, what is expected from them, and also what they are expecting from other people in the process. So, what we do when we identify these core processes is we bring those people into the room and say, okay, so we're going to document, for instance, our receiving and inventory process. And that may be two different departments, but you want representatives from both of those departments there so you can figure out the expectations. Okay, this is what receiving thinks that they're expected to do. This is what inventory thinks that they're expecting to receive, and make sure that those things align. And if they don't, that's when you kind of have to hash out and say, okay, so what information does inventory, for instance, really need for receiving versus what information is receiving actually giving to inventory?
So, kind of again, going back a little bit in summary, if I say, hey, number one, to grow your business, do you have like a bullet point or like or number list kind of going from one, two, three, the kind of couple key things, kind of so the listeners can kind of hear that and remember this for sure?
So I would say when you're looking in terms of growth, the first thing I would say is get aligned. That would be my first bullet point. Get aligned. Again, everyone in the company aligned around what you value and where you're trying to grow. Uh, the second would be to make sure that everyone has a similar idea of what it is that the company is trying to do and what problem the company is trying to solve. Uh, and then as that happens, I think you'll sort of start building a culture that it doesn't matter who external people are interacting with in your company, they will always have a similar experience and they will know what your company's brand is based on. And then as you do that, you'll start to build up more of a brand within the community that not only will people know what your company is by name, but they'll also know who you are. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, brand's definitely important for sure. Do you Do you post them somewhere? What do you recommend? I mean, I think those that little summary is good. So once they get aligned and all that kind of stuff, do you post that, mission statement, goal, vision, whatever you want to call it in that sense? Do you post it somewhere online or in your what do you recommend so everybody knows?
So I think it depends for each particular company what works best for them. We personally at ProcessWorks have all of this stuff because we are an EOS company. We run on the Entrepreneurial Operating System. We have all of this in an EOS tool called the Vision Traction Organizer that we reference at minimum at our quarterly meetings. But I know that there are certain parts of it. Like I have my quarterly goals. If I could tilt my camera, I could show you. I have them right here so that I can always reference them and see, where I'm heading for that particular quarter. But as far and that's what works for us. But I think it really works differently for each particular company, depending on what people are looking at, what they're always seeing. If there's a company portal that you use as far as like logging in and things like that, that you can post things on, that's great. If you have a share drive or a SharePoint or something like that that's used really often, you can put it there. But I think it is really important to find somewhere that you know that your employees are going to be looking consistently and post that stuff there. Because repetition helps cement things in our heads, right? So the more that we see these things, the more we see our goals, the more we see our values, the more we internalize them, and the more that we live them.
Yes, perfect. Great advice. You mentioned EOS several times. I'm familiar with it, but maybe for the audience who's not, what is EOS?
Sure. So EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it is a set of tools designed to help companies grow with more intent. The idea is that you get everyone, as I've sort of been talking about, you get everyone aligned around your goals, around your values, while at the same time building out other areas of your business, including data, including people, traction is probably the word that most people associate with EOS because that's the name of the book that kind of tells you about it. And it's helping improve companies in all of these different areas of their business. That just sort of helps the companies grow, as I said, with more intentionality. So that the idea is that you're not just trying to push forward; you're trying to push forward in a certain direction, and you have tools and measurements and all sorts of data helping you get there.
You mentioned about goals. I know you mentioned quarterly. How often do you recommend people looking at goals and breaking that big goal way, way, way down the road to getting smaller and smaller? How what do you recommend? How do you recommend doing that too? I know you guys get together quarterly. What do you recommend?
So the quarterly approach works really well for us, and I know EOS tends to use that approach because they say that if you break it down much smaller than that, you're getting a little bit too granular. But if you don't break it down small enough, then you're not putting out like specific stepstones to get to those big goals. So quarterly works really well for us, and I know that's what they recommend in the EOS method. But, for us, being able to, kind of map out exactly what those goals are gonna be, typically, the way that that works is that we sit down and we review, our one-year goal, our five-year goal, our 10-year goal, and figure out, okay, what are the most important things that we need to do right now in the next 90 days to get us on the track to getting there? And that's where we figure out what those quarterly goals are going to be. And then in EOS, they call them rocks. And that's how we plan those out is we say, okay, if I want to be here in 3 years, or if I want to be here in 10 years, what do I need to do in the next 90 days?
Perfect. And who all do you? I mean, I know your company. There's three of you mainly, but let's just say a
Mhm.
small company that you work with, say on average. Who all do you recommend coming to those meetings, or does that even change? Maybe quarterly you do X, but once a year.
So, for the quarterly meetings that we do, for other companies that are doing something similar, you definitely want your leadership team involved, and probably your entire leadership team. I know that's how EOS does it. Is when they do their quarterly meetings, the entire leadership team needs to be present. Now, what we do with our process works meetings, which again are a little bit different, is since we're going into the operational side of the business a little bit more, we actually recommend involving the people who are what we refer to as physically doing the job. So the people, whether it's your operators, your project managers, or your engineers, depending on what your business is, bringing those people in the room, or specifically the person who is the subject matter expert in that specific process, involving them in the documentation of that process specifically, can be really, really helpful. And I think bringing in some of that additional insight sort of across the corporate ladder into those quarterly meetings can be insightful as well. Uh, and I know generally that's not typically how US structures their quarterly meetings. But just coming from the background that I do, I think that it's always helpful to have voices from, like I said, across that corporate ladder speaking out about, well, this is what we need to work on right now. These are the problems that we're seeing, and this is where we want to go.
Yes, excellent, excellent. So tell me, what is one challenge our listener community could help you maybe solve?
So ProcessWorks is a relatively new company. We are in our second year of business right now. We'll be celebrating our second anniversary in August, and we are building up, some brand recognition specifically within the Pittsburgh area. But to be honest, we're so young that we're still trying to kind of, for lack of a better term, wave our arms and let people know that we exist. And so the biggest thing that I think that the listeners could do for us is to keep your ears open. And if you hear someone who is struggling with these kinds of things, who's growing too much too quickly, or they just feel like they're not in alignment with the rest of their company, and they kind of feel like they don't have that direction. I would love to talk to them, even if they're not necessarily a fit for ProcessWorks. I at this point have built up a fantastic community of resources, and I'm happy to refer people elsewhere if they need different help.
Perfect, perfect. So, Sarah, the first half we learned from you. The second half, I would like to learn more about you. So, next, you know, take me back in time when little Sarah, did you know you'd be running and growing a company?
Yeah, so the way that I got to Process Works was actually was is sort of a funny story. Because I spent my formative years of my career working in the transportation industry and in the steel industry. And I loved what I was doing there. I was mainly working in process improvement, change management, those kinds of things. At the steel companies that I worked at specifically, I wore multiple different hats. The first one that I worked in, I was also the manager of shipping and receiving and did some customer success and things like that. The second one that I worked at, I actually helped build out their training program, which was so fun. And while all of this was happening, while I was working at these companies, Michael, my father, came to me and said, "Hey, so I know you've been doing a lot of process work, over the past few years." He had spent some years as a business process consultant under the total quality management system. And since 2017 has actually been working as an EOS implementer, which is one of the reasons I talk about EOS so much. And he came to me and said, "Hey, I have this idea for another company, but I don't necessarily think that I'm the one to run it. I think there's something here. There's something that I can help people with, but I am not as process minded as you are." Which, to be fair, EOS also talks about the visionary integrator relationship, and Michael is a textbook visionary. He has so many ideas, and he is great with big relationships and coming up with brilliant plans and those kinds of things. And I'm very much the person whose feet on the ground. I love all 10 of these ideas, but these are the two that we can do right now, and this is the one that we absolutely have to do. Is the way that I describe that relationship. Um, so anyway, he brought this to me and and said, "I think you could be, really helpful, and I think this could be a fantastic opportunity for you." And initially I said no, because I was really happy where I was. And I said, "Listen, I'll help you build it out, but like I don't think I'm the one to be the boots on the ground. I'll give you input and we can talk about it, but you're gonna have to find someone else to actually run the business." And as the months turned into a couple years that we were talking about this, it kind of came to a point where I was like, "You know what? I'm always going to wonder what would happen if I had done this if I don't." And so I decided in August of 2023 to kind of make the entrepreneurial leap, so to speak, and to go into Process Works full time. And that's what I've been doing since.
Yeah, I remember you when we were talking a little bit that you mentioned that, and that is actually intriguing. Turning him down first. How? I mean, just because I think some people do work with their parents or whatever. How do you like working with your dad? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
My dad has been my professional role model pretty much my entire life. I always looked up to him, and I always saw him as kind of like, this is what success looks like, not just because he had built up a very prestigious career for himself, but also because he was always very good at prioritizing family as well. And even though like we knew that that he worked hard, he was also, always there for me growing up. He, would still come to my basketball games and my track meets and all that kind of stuff when I was a kid. Even though he had this very busy, career and this bustling professional life, he always found time for me as well. So I also, I saw him not just an example of, what good work ethic looks like, but also like how to kind of set boundaries and have good work life balance as well. And that's one of the things that I think has been really great about working with him is the fact that, and granted, there's probably a lot of it that is, because we're family, so he also cares about me as his daughter. But for the other person in our organization who is not related to us, we all genuinely care about each other. And when something is happening, that one of us has to step away for whatever reason, that the others are going to be checking on them again, whether it's me or my dad or Chelsea, the other person in our organization, just making sure that whoever it is all right. And that's one of the things that is actually one of our core values is what we refer to as passionate commitment. That we are passionate about what we do and we are passionately committed to our company, but we're also passionately committed to each other as people and making sure that we are all, continuing to grow and be healthy and are happy in our roles.
That is great, and I'm sure dad is very proud of you, but that is really great to hear about you speaking to him like that. It's interesting, I've had a couple recent guests, and they talked really about balance, having that balance, and to me as a father, it's really important that I'm there for my daughter, watching her run or whatever sport too, but I just think it's very, very important, so it's good that your dad did that because it is hard, I don't man, woman, to have a very career that's pulling and they're pulling you in directions and you're trying to get it done and oh, just I'll just miss this one game turns into 2 games, 3 games, 4 games. So for your dad to do that for you is really, really good. And I try to do the same. So that's very impressive. So you mentioned, your dad a little bit too. Chelsea, you think you just mentioned her. What does she do in your organization?
So Chelsea does all of our administrative stuff. So she started out as Michael's assistant, but she's kind of become like the admin guru for Process Works as far as scheduling things is concerned. She's also always coordinating between me and Michael because our schedules tend to be very hectic. And she is very good about making sure that we are all in communication with each other. She handles a lot of the emails that go out to clients and things like that. And yeah, she does so much for us in terms of helping keep us organized and making sure that we're communicating with people that we need to communicate with. And yeah, she's our admin extraordinaire.
That's very nice. Very nice shout out to her. Um, so I mean, we've learned a little bit about process works, but if I just said hey, tell me what process works in 60 seconds or less, what would you tell me?
So Process Works is a company that is focused on helping small and mid-sized businesses improve their processes in a way that is simple, fast, and impactful. It's simple because we're handling an entire process over the course of just a couple hours, keeping everything as concise and consumable as possible, creating documents that are typically only a couple of pages long. It's fast again because we're documenting all of those in only a couple of hours, and it's impactful because we actually include a method for rolling the process out through the organization to make sure that everyone actually follows it and is on the same page about how things should be done.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So here's maybe a difficult question. We'll see. If you could go back in time and meet yourself the day you founded your company, what advice would you give her?
So I think the biggest thing that I would tell myself, and it's very similar to something that Michael, my father, told me when we were first starting out, is that starting a new business, people have this idea that it's just going to be a steady uphill climb, and that in reality, it's a whole lot more like this. That you think that you're just going to be going up a mountain gradually, but instead you start going up a mountain, and then all of a sudden there's a bottomless pit that you have to figure out how to get across, and then there's another side of the mountain, and then there's a pool filled with sharks, and all of these different things. That it's a lot more for lack of a better term, bipolar than I thought it was going to be. That with really high highs and really scary lows. And the thing that I would tell myself is just to just do my best to ride the waves. I know one of the things that kind of panicked me early on was that I would see us going through the struggles that all small businesses go through when they're first getting started, and there would be little things that would happen, that would feel like the end of the world. Whether, I had a client cancel a session, or a prospect that I've been working with forever that decided that, you know what, we're just not ready to do this right now. And those things felt so earth shattering. And it turns out that, I mean, they're unfortunate, but you have to move on. And especially early on, I struggled with that a lot. I would really internalize things and let things that didn't go my way really, really get me down. And as we've continued on, in this journey, it's something that I've gotten a little better at. I'm not going to say I'm great at it yet. I still get discouraged when it's like, oh man, we've been talking for a year now, and now you tell me that you don't want to do this, or what have you.
Right.
But I do think that it's been it's something that I've been improving a lot over time. Is figuring out how to to ride those waves and say, okay, you know what, this one didn't work out. There's going to be a next one though, and it's going to be okay.
No, that's perfect advice. I was gonna even ask this, but I'll ask it now. I think is what any helpful hints? How do you get through those ups and downs and stuff like that?
So, my first full-time job that I had out of college, I worked at ADP, the payroll company, and I was doing inside sales for them, and I was not a great fit for inside sales. I'll put it that way. And I would stress over every particular deal that I was working on, and if anything fell through, it always felt catastrophic. And I remember Michael telling me then, when I was 23 years old, a deal is not an egg. You don't have to cradle it and hold it in your hand and protect it. And if it drops, it breaks, and everything is bad. A deal is not an egg. There will always be more deals. You just have to keep your head down and keep going. And it really took, I think, for me getting into this position, where yes, there is an element of business development that I do, but my role now is has a lot more hats than just business development. And but as I've been going through with process works, I've really been internalizing that it's not neg. You don't have to protect it. If it breaks, it's not going to shatter everything. It's just that there are some people that this is not a fit for right now, and that's okay. And the one that really stinks sometimes is when you talk to a company, or when I talk to a company and I know that I can help them, and they're just for whatever reason feeling like it's just not something that needs to be a priority for them right now, and then you walk away with the feeling of almost disappointment for them, because it's like, "I know I could help you, I just wish you would let me." But even then, you have to move on.
Yes. I tell you, I really like that advice from your dad about the egg. That is actually, I really, really like that. Maybe I need to chat with him someday. He seems like he's a really, really intelligent person for sure.
He's a
Like,
smart guy, yeah.
yeah, just listening to you, and so are you. I don't mean it that way, but it's just amazing that you're incorporating some of the things that he does into your life. That's kind of shaped you as well and stuff like that. And I'm sure you'll that shapes into your company. That you're helping other companies, but it is great to definitely hear. So on the outside, keep your life balanced. What do you do on the outside of work? What do you do for fun?
So I mentioned sports earlier when I was a kid. I've always been a little bit of a jock. The sport that I've stuck with the most though is running. I've been running since I was about 12 years old, and I still like running now. I don't get much more ambitious than like 5Ks anymore. But it's absolutely one of my favorite things. And then on the conversely, or on the opposite side of the spectrum of things that are not so good for you, I also love baking. So that's my balance there, is that I run and then I get to eat cupcakes that I bake afterwards.
That's excellent. And you mentioned you recently got married. So congratulations, first of all, for that. Did you guys travel anywhere? Any neat, exciting travel plans?
Yes. So both my husband and I are huge travelers. We did a fair amount of traveling before we met each other, and we've done more, since we met. And for our honeymoon, we went to a few different places in Europe. We were in Portugal for a couple days, couple different cities there, Paris, and then we went to Krakow in Poland for a few days, and we finished off our trip in Greece, which is my favorite place in the world.
I was gonna ask you that. Well, one, I have not been to Greece, but second, I would say that is your favorite is Greece so far.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we this is actually our second time that we've been over there. And the first time that we went, was kind of a bucket list trip for me, because ever since I was a little kid, I've been really interested in Greek mythology, and I love the stories about the gods. And so we actually climbed Mount Olympus when we went out there the first time, which was an incredible experience and probably the most physically demanding thing I've ever done.
Wow. Well, that's good to know because one, we are similar actually in that I love the gods and stuff like that. So I will have to do that. It's funny, my daughter. Now here's the key. I'll probably take my daughter. She's 15. She runs 800 meters a mile. 5, 6 miles in practice, right? You ask her to go on 3 steps sometimes, and she's making it like at the end of the road. She's a teenager, typical teenager. But I'll see if I can convince her to do it. She might like that. To go up the steps just for that reason, for sure. So I might have to drag her there.
There you go.
Yes, 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 yes. How about your husband? What's his favorite? Is it Greece also, or is it something else?
So he actually, I think his favorite place that he's ever been is Poland.
Okay.
Just because there's a lot of really cool history there, and Polish people are just like they're kind of quiet at first, but like once you get started talking to them, they're really really interesting people, and they're very welcoming. And yeah, I'm trying to remember. It was his second time in Poland when we went for our honeymoon, my first, and he was in I want to say Poznan. With the first time he went. And then this time in Krakow was just absolutely incredible, beautiful too. Like with the architecture and some of the landscapes, just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Definitely an underrated destination, in my opinion.
I'll have to remember that. What's a couple bucket travel destinations that you and him have here for the future?
So we are planning a trip to London. Hopefully, I ideally will be next year, potentially the year after, depending on how some things pan out.
Yeah.
But, I went to London for a couple days actually with my dad and my sister a few years ago and absolutely loved it. And, some of the things that I saw there just as far as the history and things like that, I just thought, "Oh, Jarrett," my husband's name is Jarrett.
Yeah.
"Jarrett would absolutely love this." So we're definitely planning on a trip over there. And then, going back to like the Greek connection, um, there are a few different places there that I still wanna go as well. And actually, what a lot of people don't know about what we refer to as ancient Greece is it's not just Greece. The ancient city of Troy is actually located in I want to say southeastern Turkey or southwestern Turkey, and that's one of the places that I really want to go as well. Is to see because they actually have like some archaeological ruins there, and of course they have like yeah a bunch of like Trojan horses and things constructed, and I just think it would be really cool to see.
No, that sounds very, very, very cool. So if people want to connect with you, my business audience wants to connect with you, how will we connect with you in your company?
So you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name on LinkedIn is Sarah Halperin DiPerna. Halperin is my middle name, and you can also always reach out to me via email. The probably the quickest way in terms of podcast to get in touch with me is info at process-works.com. You can always get me there. And I check my email and my LinkedIn compulsively, so I will probably get back to you pretty quickly.
Yes, excellent. Well, Sarah, I want to thank you for an excellent episode with you. I appreciate all the travel tips, but more importantly, how to grow your business. So thank you very much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Want to thank the audience. If you learned something today or laughed, tell someone about the podcast. Again, Sarah, thank you very much for being on the show today. And this has been another exciting episode of Still City Growth. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Still City Growth. Thanks for joining us. For show notes and more, visit stillcitygrowth.live. Still City Growth is proudly sponsored by Murphy Business of Pittsburgh, offering expert guidance in buying, selling, and valuing businesses to help you achieve your goals. Until next time.